Okay, you can start now.
Thank you. So I'm calling the meeting to order. So welcome to the April 26th meeting of the Community Board 6 Youth and Education Committee. My name is John Keller, and I am the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order as promised at 6:35 p.m. and at 6:35 p.m. Tonight we are joined by Community Associate Alexandra Crawford, as well as by District Manager Jesus Perez, and very happy to have them both with us this evening. There are several members of the public already present, and we will be very attentive to your thoughts because we know many of you have come here to speak about one of our resolutions. And you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A initially, but after the committee's discussion, assuming we have time, which I will make sure we do, we will voice and field questions from the public. And I'm very grateful to Stu Stewart for volunteering to take minutes at tonight's meeting. Thanks a lot, Stu. You should all have received an email from the board office with a link to a doodle sign-up sheet for minute takers at the committee meetings in 2022. For your convenience, the link to the sign-up sheet is being posted in the chat right now by Alexandra. So we will begin by taking attendance by roll call, and Alexandra will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Asia Badi. Neil Barclay.
Present.
John Keller.
Present.
Abigail Cruzmark.
Present.
Philip Napolitano.
Present.
Sean Sherman.
Here.
And Stu Stewart.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Oh, thank you very much, Alexandra. Okay, so the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office as reflected on the screen in front of you. And it includes starting with a presentation in item 1 of a resolution supporting improvements in arts funding for New York City Public Schools, with a presentation by Kim Olson from the Arts and Education Roundtable. And I told Ms. Olson beforehand, and she was kind enough to agree that if we had a large number of people who came here to talk about item 2, the presentation and discussion of a resolution on increasing the school safety staff at Salk School of Science and Ps40, that we would move item 1 to second place and item 2 to the initial place. And she was kind enough to agree to that. So I'm going to suggest, if there are no objections, amending the agenda for tonight's meeting to reflect that. Seeing no objections, the meeting agenda is amended, and once again I express my gratitude to Ms. Olson for her gracious patience in this regard. The minutes from this February 22nd meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office, with gratitude to Neil Barclay for taking them. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Everybody knows how to do that these days. Seeing no objection, the minutes from the February 22nd meeting are adopted, and they will soon be available on the CV6 website. We have some ground rules in order to conduct an efficient meeting. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. And the chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hands through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having, or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. And this is kind of important, and I ask people to observe that. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, or a guest is given the floor to speak, I will identify you, and you can unmute yourself so you can speak. And we're required by New York State law to have a transcript of the meeting. So please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion, and don't do what I do and make dumb comments that you would later be embarrassed to see, which I have done in the past. Okay, so we are going to pursue the agenda as amended. And the first item on the agenda as amended, if Alexandra, if we could put it up, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, give me one moment.
Take your time. I appreciate all the work you've done to help us get ready here this evening. I'll just begin as it's coming up. This is a resolution in support of increasing the NYPD school safety staff at PS40, the Augustus St. Galvin School, O2M040, and MS255, the Salk School of Science. I can give a little background on this, as I'm familiar with the building since one of my sons spent 3 wonderful years at Salk. This is a 5-floor walk-up pre-war building with 2 schools and roughly close to 1,000, but to be conservative, 940 students. Customarily, there have been 2 school security agents. When you walk in the building and you just do a little left, when you walk in through the 20th Street entrance, there's a desk with a security guard, and the security guard basically controls access not just to the stairwell for the building, which there is no elevator in this building, so the stairwell to the building, but it also controls access to the cafeteria and the courtyard where kids play. And so there's always someone on duty at that desk, and then another security guard who is circulating throughout the building. So both school principals have confirmed that historically there have been 2 school safety agents on duty, one of whom patrols the building while the other supervises those trying to get into the building. And it's a building not only with 940 students, but with students ranging in age from 3 and 4 years old to 13 and 14 years old. So that number of school safety agents has been reduced from 2 to 1 in recent days. And so that means a number of things, and just summarizing the resolution, either a staff member from one of the schools or a school safety agent from another school to fill in for the building school safety agent when the lone agent is at lunch or has to take a break. Creates other challenges in responding to critical situations during the school day, including 2 recent controlled evacuations of the building, triggered in one case by a fire, which set off the fire alarm, in another case by an unplanned triggering of the fire alarm. Also, both schools conduct after-school programs in the building for a total of approximately 350 students on a daily basis from 2:40 until 6 p.m. And they also rely on the school safety staff to monitor the programs in support of a limited number of after-school staff. The principals of both PS40 and MS255 have reached out via letters to the DOE Safety Office, pointing out the safety risks involved and requesting an additional school safety agent to bring the building staffing to its historical level. But while school safety management has so far been sympathetic to the request of the principals, they've not yet replaced the missing school safety agent. And the parent leadership of PS40 and MS255, represented by Ms. Bondi and Ms. Caposo here this evening, have reached out to Community Board 6 seeking our support. And so therefore the resolution before you tonight is in support of replacing the missing school safety agent in the school. And it's even though we have a number of people here this evening who want to speak on this subject, it is our custom to begin with members of the community board. So I'll ask members of the committee first of all, and thank you, there's the reso. I'll ask members of the committee first to make comments or ask any questions that they might, and we have an ample number of people here present this evening to answer those questions. And Alexandra, I noticed as I look at the attendees that we also have Len Silverman among our attendees this evening. Len is also a member of the Community Education Council for District 2. And Alexander, would it be possible to bring Len in as a panelist as well, given that he is an elected representative across Manhattan? I appreciate that. Thank you. First then, are there any questions about the resolution from the members of the committee? And we have, as I said, a lot of people here who can answer those questions. Hey, Len, welcome. It's nice to see you. Okay, Stu, hi. Stewart, please, go ahead.
Hi. I come to this from an abundance of ignorance, but I don't mind being provocative either. I'm concerned about over-policing our schools, just as we over-police some communities. My starting point are reports of school officers using exceptionally bad judgment, arresting and handcuffing first graders, arresting a principal who tried to prevent what she felt was the unwarranted arrest of one of her students, and so forth. And, of course, if you're an enforcement officer and the only tool you have is to arrest, then you use it even if it's a circumstance where the academic administrators could probably better handle the situation and should be the ones in charge. To quote Justice Kennedy from a case involving the gratuitous acts of an immature police officer, it's not a constitutional violation for a police officer to be a jerk. So, just like the beat officer who's not trained to deal with people going through mental health crises and who doesn't have to take orders from civilians who know better, aren't we concerned that we have school security agents who aren't trained to deal with kids and adolescents and who might make some really bad decisions?
I want to give you a chance to finish your question. I'll make a quick comment in response to what is a very valid question, and then I'm going to defer to some of our guests here this evening as well. Okay. In my experience in our schools, and as I said, I have direct experience of this particular school over 13 years of parenting in our schools. The safety officers are there for the safety of the kids. And but there is no doubt that you're raising what is a legitimate and important issue of a broader nature in terms of, how our schools are managed and quote unquote policed. And that's a broader question and a very fair question. But in this case, at least in my experience, and I'm going to defer to people here who have more direct experience with the school, these are sort of more valued members of the community than enforcement officials. So I think what I'd like to do, but I recognize the validity of the question as asked. And Ben, I'm going to reach to you first if you wish to comment, the president of CEC2, who has a very, very good overview of all the schools in CEC and has, I know, a relationship with the Department of School Safety and its leadership.
Thank you very much, John. I understand the question and I understand the concern, Stuart, but there is the reality that there's been increased violence in our district, and our other schools have had this similar concern. Parents and community members have had this similar concern about the environment that has changed significantly over the past few years. I'm also, by the way, a liaison to the council liaison to PS40 and the Salk School. On the Education Council, we have worked to increase a safety officer at one of the schools that was facing some real issues, were not just gun violence outside the school, and that was a present danger to our students and to keep students it is, this is a difficult issue, and but as John put it accurately, these safety agents, these safety officers, they're part of the community, and we've recognized that, and I've received from parents as well, and other and principals notices that that this is a concern, and then we have to respond to that. And when you had this fire issue at PS40 and the Salk School as well, you can't just have one safety agent managing for 1,000 students, so, or over 1,000 people in this one building. So there is the other issue of that there is a shortage of safety officers in New York City, and the security director, Mark Radpercent, has made a commitment to increase the number of safety officers for schools, but those numbers aren't going to be increased anytime soon without community input. And they're expecting to graduate a class of about 600 or so, I believe is the number, but I might be off on that, this summer, before the September school year begins. But if our community is looking to expand this to deal with the issues that are faced, with 1,000 students, one person cannot manage that. And so if we're looking for a safety officer, this is a present issue, and that which was brought to the light. And it's not just PS40, it's many other schools too in our district.
Thank you, Ben. And I'm going to now notice that Len Silverman, who is not only a member of the Community Education Council for District 2, but president of the District 2 President's Council, has his hand raised for comment, and then I'm going to go to the PA presidents of SALC and PS40. But Len.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. So I'm here tonight in my capacity as the co-president of the District 2 President's Council, along with Matthew Chook. For those of you who don't know, the District 2 President's Council is made up of PTA presidents or their designees from different schools that comprise District 2. We represent over 45 district schools. We recently at a meeting passed a resolution supporting the restoration of the school safety officers to pre-pandemic levels. So I just want to stress that, as Ben pointed out, there's actually been a reduction in the numbers of school safety agents. And just on a personal note, I just want to mention, I can speak that at PS158, for example, school safety agents were shared. In other words, they just didn't have enough school safety agents to go around, and school safety agents were forced to do double duty at different schools on occasion. So this is a really concerning issue for members of our community, for members of our local schools. And again, as Ben also pointed out, there is a perception certainly of an uptick in incidents and crime, and parents are very concerned. And I think it's the fact that we've supported that resolution and passed that resolution at our President's Council indicates that this really is a very important topic. It's on the minds of our parents and of our Parents Association leaders, and it really needs to be addressed. So there has been a fundamental change in the level of support and protection for our students. And that's what we certainly as a District 2 President's Council would like to see restored, certainly to pre-pandemic levels. And I think that without that happening, parents are going to be very concerned, and we're going to be concerned about the safety of our students.
Thank you, Len. And I'm going to now turn to, we have representatives from PS40 and MS255. I also note that we have many participants in the attendees room, and you can, if you wish to be recognized to speak, you can use the raise your hand function, and we will make sure we give you an opportunity to speak. But we'll begin with people on the panel and members of the board. So I'm just going to ask if I'll start with Faith Bondi, the president of the PA at MS255. Faith, do you have any comments you would like to make? Stuart raises some good points, and as do Len and Ben.
Absolutely, and I'm not gonna reiterate what Len and Ben have said. I think they make excellent points, and I think one thing to emphasize is, I think one concern for parents more than anything is not so much policing inside the school, but it's really protecting the students a lot from people coming from outside the school. There's a lot of people in the school building. There's almost or more than 1,000 people within the school building. Our teachers have been stretched really thin, particularly over the last 2.5 years. And they are asked to be doing double, triple duty already, but both serving as teachers, as counselors, as health care workers. And now they're also being asked to step in and provide additional safety for our children, on top of the safety we ask them to provide for them every day. We entrust our children to them every single day. And when the safety agent isn't there, people from the school have to step into that role as well. And it's really about protecting from our children a lot from the outside coming in, as opposed to policing the inside of the school. And that's really important for parents to know that when our children are inside that building, they're protected from the outside world. That's their little cocoon in there. And also, and to the point, when our safety agents are overworked and overwhelmed, there's more likelihood, or any person is overworked and overwhelmed, there's more of a likelihood that I think that someone may react in a way that is inappropriate or unexpected or overreact. And when people have the proper support, whether, sufficient backup, it's more likely that they address the situation more even-handedly and deal with it in a manner that we think is appropriate. And I think our community is an excellent community. Our principals, our assistant principals, our administration is an excellent group. They work really well with our school safety staff and in addressing all the issues that go on in the school. I think they just need more support. And so I've been there. There haven't been any issues. They have a well-oiled machine. They have a great rapport with school safety. They just need extra support to address these issues. Having one person in charge is, in many ways, I think, a recipe for disaster, more so than having an additional safety officer.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Faith.
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Faith. And then I want to give Natalie from PS40 a chance to respond as well. Natalie, go ahead. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. And thanks for having us. I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Faith said. I mean, I see this as two issues. One is that our school safety agent works incredibly hard. Sometimes she's got 14-hour days. She gets a half-hour lunch break. That's not what it was before when we had two agents on. So for me, I really feel for her as a person, but also because I don't think that one person should just be doing that job. I just think it's obviously we had two agents for a reason years ago. And now I can't say whether or not the neighborhood is less safe, more safe than it used to be. That's not my area of expertise. But I know that there are times when she has been called outside and someone else has to be put on the door. And that person that's put on the door is not a school safety agent. And so already I think, we're putting ourselves in precarious situations when that happens. That's basically all I wanted to say. I think Faith really said a lot of what I wanted to say tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. And Alexandra, can people in the attendees, do they have the capacity to raise their hand, or should they let it be known in chat that they?
So they can raise their hand, and then
Okay.
once they do that, I can allow them to talk.
Great. So if you could just keep an eye for that. I've been looking. I haven't seen any hands up over there. So I'd like to give Stuart a chance to respond, and as well as any other members of the committee to comment or respond while we see if any other people in attendance tonight want to speak. I do see we have one person who does.
I defer to the parents and the administrators. If that's how they feel, that's what they should get.
And Faith, thank you, Stuart. But you raise a valid point, and maybe a subject for discussion next year, and as the committee continues its work on other on broader issues. Alexandra, I think we have one person in the chat with their hand up in the participants attendee list with their hand up. Can we?
Yeah, there's actually two of them. So
Okay.
I'll allow Carolyn to speak first. I saw they had their hands raised first.
Thank you.
Okay, you can unmute yourself.
Hi,
Thank you
Carolyn.
so much.
You're recognized and you may speak. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Carolyn Weeks. I'm a parent of two students at PS40, a second grader and a pre-K student. And I have been an attorney at the Legal Aid Society representing children in abuse, neglect, and delinquency proceedings for 16 years. And I say that only to provide background for to address the comment regarding over policing. I definitely see that a lot in the communities that I service. And I could safely say that this is not an instance of that happening at PS40. What is really important right now is for there to be a gatekeeper between the school and the community. There has been a rise in an abundance of different varieties of crime, but especially anti-Asian crime. In the vicinity of the school, there are a multitude of methadone clinics and also halfway houses, and we're in near the Lower East Side. I personally have seen a mentally unwell person throw an iced coffee at a parent as the parent was picking up their child, and Officer Magic, who used to be the other safety officer in the school, ran out to address the situation. And Officer Miles, who is still there, remained inside to serve as the gatekeeper and continue to ensure the safety of the students. In addition, every day, there's 1,000 students. Some are sick. Some are having an incident in school. My son just had an incident where he bumped his head. People are constantly going in and out, signing in and signing out. If there's no one there, anyone from the community, anyone could just walk in and do whatever they want, take any student they want, and that is unacceptable. That is not the way that a school should function. And I believe that having one person to protect the entire school, even when there's incidents such as a fire alarm, such as an incident between the public and the parents, where the officer has to engage outside of the school, that is irresponsible and negligent of the safety of the student body.
That's go ahead. No, please. I don't want to interrupt you.
Thank you so much. So my point is, it is also for the police office, the safety agent who's stationed inside the school. How is one person expected to be in two places at once? There's a reason that police officers who service the community have a partner. There's no way a person could be in two different places if there's an incident. Protecting the community by being a gatekeeper person for the school, and also addressing the situation as it arises. It's impossible. And so at this point, I just don't understand how it's even logical for one person to be able to service the entire community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Weeks, and your work with the legal. Thank you for your work with the Legal Aid Society. That's important work in our city. Alexandra, is there someone else as well who want to speak?
Yeah, there's two people. I saw Lauren's hand was up first, so I will
Thank you.
Unmute Lauren. Okay, you can unmute yourselves.
Hi, Lauren, you're recognized to speak.
Hi, yes, I want to make sure I'm able to be heard. Can I be heard?
Yep.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I want to thank the committee and the fellow parents who are here. This is just very brief to follow up on what's already been said. Just to reiterate, as you may know, some of you, that SALC and PS40, and just to preface this, I have 3 young children, all at PS40. I'm also a public servant and an attorney, and I just want to make clear that this is really coming from a place of deep concern, and also coming from the administration and the school safety officers themselves. The 14-hour shifts, these long shifts that a single safety officer is being charged with, is just something that they can no longer handle. PS40 and SALC cover a 2-block radius from one avenue to the other. SALC and PS40 also include the public park that was not mentioned tonight, that is used by members of the public. So on frequent occurrences, almost every day, as previously mentioned by the fellow parent, there are incidents in the park that will cause these safety agents to have to leave the desk in order to deal with the property that is part of PS40, but is used as for part of the public, so that they have a park, they have a restroom. This is all part of PS40 and SALC, which is another level of deep concern. Again, we really appreciate the time tonight. This is not about over-policing. This is just asking to bring the schools back to pre-pandemic levels, where we have 1,000 students in the school. As you may know, Baruch across the street has over 1,000 students, similar to PS40. At this point, they may have less, and they have 3 safety agents. So we are simply asking for the school to be brought back to the 2, to make sure, as the other parent mentioned, that there's at least 2 people that can safeguard the school. And again, we appreciate the time tonight and really being receptive to parents. It's very much appreciated by those who live in the community.
Thank you, Ms. Angelo, and we will certainly be advising Councilmember Rivera, Paulina Rivera, whose district the school falls in, of the results of tonight's meeting. Thank you. Alexandra, is there someone else with their hand raised as well? Ms. Shah, thank you. You are recognized to speak.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Meghna Shah. I'm also a parent of a first grader at PS40. And I'm really appreciative of this platform and the opportunity to kind of address this concern. I guess my question is a little bit more around the process. So as parents and as community members, what can we do to ensure that we do get another safety agent? Is there anything in addition to talking to the council members that we can do to support?
That's a really good question. And that was part of my reason for inviting Ben and Len here tonight as well. The first step is if the board members agree that we with this resolution, that we pass this resolution and then take it to the full board of Community Board 6. And these resolutions don't always get exactly what we want, but they do get noticed by people in the city, and they certainly get noticed by we have council members Rivera and Powers. I'm not speaking for them here, but they have many people in their districts go to these schools, so they would be of interest. And I noticed Ben Morden, president of CEC2, has his hand up. So Ben, I'm in the position of recognizing you to speak.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, John. I just want to reply to Ms. Shah that it's, if the resolution is recognized and by the full community board, that it's my intention to bring this also to the security director at the New York City DOE, Mark Rampersant, to his attention that this is an important concern of the community. The education district for 2 has lost 4,000 students in enrollment in the past 2 years. Education concerns, safety concerns, they're all, these are important to parents, and responding, making a response to these concerns are critical to keeping our enrollment up and at the same levels. So, and asking for just a second safety officer, to deal with the logistics, to deal with the servicing of the necessary servicing of parents, students, it's completely reasonable. So, but having this resolution would just be so much more powerful in order to then speak with Mr. Mark Rampersant.
Thank you, Ben. And Len, I know that, thank you very much, Ben, for being here this evening and for your time. Len, also thank you for being here, and I know that your hand is up as well.
So to answer your question, I mean, you have to keep doing exactly what you're doing. I mean, I think the work that this committee and that Community Board 6 is doing is exemplary. I think that as parents and as parent leaders, when we stand together, when we organize, when we have critical mass, when we lobby our elected officials, that makes the difference. Having a resolution is not simply enough. It's having a resolution or a motion and then following up on it, bringing it to the attention of elected officials. Again, the more parents that we can involve in this process, the more power and lobbying that we can get, again, that critical mass to try to make a change. It's very hard. We know there's a bureaucracy, there's lack of funding, but this clearly is an issue. And I would certainly, again, if you want to know what to do, focus on elected officials, write them, contact them, bring it to your local assembly member, your local council member, and explain that these are issues that are important to our parents. There are absolute concerns to their constituents, and then enlist them to help move this issue forward and try to restore the funding, if not increase funding. That's the best thing that we can do in terms of organizing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Len. And just one moment. And I urge everyone here, if you're not already subscribed to the Community Education CECD2, is it CECD2.net? Yeah, CECD2.net. They have a newsletter and regular meetings, which go on much later than our meetings here do. And I'm sure Ben and Len will both be pleased to get out of here before 10 p.m. But Ben and Len and I have spent a lot of time over the years advocating and pushing, and what Len says is exactly right. You just have to keep at it, keep after them, and keep making noise. Ms. Raposa, apologize for interrupting you. Natalie, you're recognized to speak.
Not at all. Thank you. I just wanted to mention I have for the last 2 or 3 months been in contact with Carlina Rivera's office. I have specifically been in touch with Katie Loeb, the deputy
She's very good.
Deputy Chief of Staff. The last thing she told me was about just a little more than a month ago. She said the DOE was reporting a staffing shortage. She did say we were under consideration for an additional school safety agent. I don't know if that really means anything. I don't.
Well, Ms. Loeb is an exemplary staff person for a council member, and she will take, if we pass this reso tonight, I know that she and Councilmember Rivera will take very seriously what we say here tonight.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
No, you have Ms. Loeb has worked on many issues with us and has been very helpful. I think I am going to cut off, unless there are other people from the public who want to speak. I'm going to give members of the committee one final chance to comment, and then I'm going to ask some. As chair, I can't make a resolution to pass move or call the question, but I'm going to ask someone to call the question. But I do want to give members of the committee and the board a chance to comment. Okay, I think that was several Mississippis, and I appreciate very much the attention and the presence of so many people from the public. Just your numbers here tonight show how important this issue is. So I'm going to ask a member of the committee, if they so wish, to call the question and second it, so that we can vote on the resolution.
I'll call the question.
And
Second.
Okay, so the question has been called by Stewart and seconded by Neil. Alexandra, could you please call the roll so we can vote on the resolution?
Yep, I'm going to go through the roll call and please tell me how you vote on this resolution. Neil Barclay.
In favor.
John Keller.
In favor.
Abigail Cruzmark.
In favor.
Philip Napolitano.
In favor.
Sean Sherman.
In favor.
And Stu Desser.
In favor.
So the resolution passes with 6 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstaining, and 0 not entitled.
Well, thank you very much, committee members. I'd like to thank Faith and Natalie, especially for the work over the weekend, pulling this together and communicating with Principal Felder and Principal Perry. And I would especially like to thank Ben Morden and Len Silverman, who will be very happy to have a meeting end before 10 p.m. here this evening. I'm sure, remembering our days together on the school board. Thank you very much for being here. In other words, you're free to go. You don't, you don't have to stay. And Natalie and Faith, if you want to stay around and for the very interesting discussion we're about to have on arts in schools, you are welcome to do so, but you don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you, John. Thank you, committee.
Okay, that was a good process and polite. Thank you, everybody. And we recognize that important questions about how we deal with policing in schools were raised and should be given voice. So I will now move on, and with again gratitude to Kim Olson, the Executive Director of Arts and Education Roundtable. I believe Kim has a few slides that she has sent to me, which I sent to the board office, and give her a chance to introduce herself and the resolution before the committee reflects a good bit of what she will be saying this evening.
Sure. Hi there. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you again for your graciousness and allowing us to move ahead. Thank you.
Of course. So my name is Kimberly Olson, as John said. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the executive director of the New York City Arts and Education Roundtable. Thank you so much. And I will be brief, knowing that we're nearing that 7:30 mark.
No, you take the time you need, Kim.
Sure.
We're not trying to rush you in any way at all.
So I'm here to just give a little bit of context about something that my organization has been working on, which I know is of interest as well, possibly to Community Board 6, the New York City Arts and Education Roundtable. You can go on to the next slide. Perfect. We are a nonprofit service organization working here in all 5 boroughs across New York City. And our mission is truly to improve and advance arts education for all New York City students, ensuring that they are able to have a rich and thriving arts education as part of their overall curriculum. And we work with teachers, arts organizations, artists, cultural workers, and reach about 10,000 people each year through our professional development programming and advocacy as well. You can go to the next slide. So we saw immediately with the pandemic that as has historically happened in New York City, arts education was one of the first things cut, unfortunately, given the circumstances of the pandemic. However, we're also seeing that the arts and culture are oftentimes the first thing that people and students turn to when they are in need of community, when they are in need of space to process what's happening in the world around them, to help them process their own emotions. And It Starts with the Arts campaign really rests on the belief that a sequential and standards-based arts education is the foundation and a launching pad to success in not only school, but also in life. However, these opportunities we know are only available to some of New York City's 1 million students. For reference, only 34% of middle schoolers are currently reaching New York State Education Department learning requirements in the arts. 17% of schools lack a certified arts teacher here in New York City. These are numbers that are not because of the pandemic. These are things that have historically been the case as far back as we have data for, per the Arts in Schools report. So with this in mind, and knowing the importance of centering the arts and seeing anecdotally the impact that it's having, with many teachers reporting to us that students were logging in when we were in virtual times because they knew that they were going to have music class, or because they knew that they were going to work on their school musical, whether in person or in virtually. We think that it is so important that as we think about transforming our city's schools, that transformation starts with the arts. You can go on to the next slide. So earlier this month, we launched our campaign, which essentially is us building up a coalition of students, teachers, government officials, cultural workers, artists, teachers, all advocating to ensure that there is a boost in funding for arts education in our schools, so that we're able to ensure that all students have access to these types of opportunities. Specifically, what that means for our campaign are these priorities below, which I know are similar to what is reflected in the resolution as well. But essentially, we are hoping to see, as our main true ask, that we hope to see $100 dedicated per student for arts education funding. Currently, there is $79.62 that is a recommendation, a recommended allocation from Fair Student Funding, and we hope to see that baselined, as was once the case through Project Arts. And we see this really as a first step, as a launching pad to equity and access to arts education. We can go to the next slide from here. And then just for additional context beyond this meeting, if anybody's ever interested in getting more involved in It Starts with the Arts, we have a one-click form if folks are interested in contacting their city council representative. We also have a social media toolkit that you can post alongside us and other members of our coalition on social media to help amplify the message, keep the drumbeat about why this is important. And then last but not least, you can visit our website to learn more. I'll also share this presentation in the chat, which has links to all of this as well. Yeah, and I think that is it for me.
No, but I think you undersold your organization a little bit by perhaps it's supported by many organizations throughout the city. The borough president's office is a big supporter of the New York City Arts and Education Roundtable, the New York State Council on the Arts, and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs all support this organization. And the summary that Ms. Olson has just given is the summary of testimony that she gave to the New York City the New York City Council Committee on Education, Kim? Was that the committee you spoke to?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, and basically the resolution lays out the requests that that Kim made. It's centered on restoring the fair student funding to $100 per student for art, which doesn't seem to be that outrageous, and also making sure that the American Rescue Plan, ARPA funding for academic recovery services continues to be dedicated to the arts as specified into fiscal 2023. And when the pandemic hit, DOE cut $15 million for art services, and we're now urging she is now urging, as is our resolution, that this funding be restored and baseline back to $24 million in future budgets, as has been committed since 2014 and 15. And this is important because it includes arts partnership grants, providing opportunities for diverse groups of students with a focus on ELL, English language learners, students with disabilities, and family engagement programs. So that's what our resolution is supporting here tonight. And as Kim said, we just strongly urge anyone who is still here from the public, and certainly all members of the community board, to engage with Ms. Olson and the fine work that her board does, as has the borough president before us. I'm going to open this then to questions from any members of the committee first. Who might have questions, members of the community board. Usually not a shy group. Stu, go ahead, please. Stu, you are a boy, you are recognized to speak. Thank you. Stu, I think you're muted.
Here I am, sorry, had
No big
trouble
deal.
muting. My impression is there's a notion that the arts, as well as athletics, are frivolous facets in schooling of minimal import in the serious scheme of things, and that if kids are interested in art or music or sports, they'll pick it up on their own. But I think the arts can not only bring joy to our lives, but might also be a source of income. My father was an interior designer. My uncle was an art director.
Oh my God.
And they both made good livings doing the work that they loved. And meanwhile, in the 50 years since I learned the Pythagorean theorem, I think I used it 10 or 20 times. But if I had more skills in and appreciation of art, I would have lived a richer life. I think the arts can inspire, they can whet one's appetite for history. Think Hamilton, can spur ideas and inquiry, especially in a bored adolescent. So, while I think geometry and trigonometry should be taught, they should not be allowed, I guess, to push the arts off to a sideshow. So I certainly support this resolution.
Thank you, Stu. Does anyone else from the board first have comments, and then I'll recognize anyone else present who might want to comment? Okay, so do any of our guests, either in the panel or among the participants who bravely stayed around, still have comments? Alexander, do you see anyone in the attendees? And so I noticed that Len Silverman, CEC D2 member and president of the D2 President's Council, has a comment. So Len.
See, John, I actually stuck around for the meeting.
Oh my God.
I just wanted
We're
to,
all sick, Len. That's fine.
I wanted to follow up what Stewart said. I'm going to date myself as well. So when I went to elementary school in the 1970s, it seemed as if art was certainly much more ingrained in the curriculum. My memory is art and music not being simply a 1 day a week or a 1 period a week activity, but certainly multiple times a week. And the same thing went for music. I'm wondering if Kimberly can explain what the challenge is or in trying to fit art into a curriculum these days that seems like every period is scheduled, and then you're dealing with all sorts of different issues, and then you have people with IEPs. How do you fit art into a daily schedule for our kids these days?
Sure.
Certainly, please speak. Thank you.
I can definitely speak to that. And so, Len, you are right on point. It's actually in the 1970s was when we saw in contemporary times what was one of the first major hits that arts education took in the later end of the 70s, with a pretty stark loss of funding, which was then followed up again in 2008 as well, and again has now happened in 2020. It's been very cyclical over the past 40, 50 years or so. And so the reason, I'll give a few reasons that we found. Number one is that we know principals are the financial leaders of their schools. They are the leaders of their schools. And oftentimes what happens is we see instances where principals understand the value of having arts in their schools and ensure that there are certified arts teachers, that there are vibrant community-based arts partnerships, and are able to carve out the time and resources for it. However, in other areas where principals might not necessarily understand the value that the arts plays, as I think Stewart was saying earlier, that the skills that are gleaned from these experiences last so far beyond when the curtain comes down, that it's the collaboration, it's the imagination, the creativity, eye contact. These are public speaking. These are things that will last and service students well beyond their time in the arts classroom. While of course we hope they go on to become artists, we know it was the McKinsey study. If you look at those 56 top skills, so many of them are practiced and strengthened in and through the arts. So part of it has to do with principal buy-in. Part of it has to do with testing as well. Per New York State standards, we know that there's a lot of pressures that schools are under to hit certain standards and benchmarks. And because the arts, while there are clear assessments for how one can assess arts education, since it is not assessed to the degree that ELA or math is, oftentimes that then falls by the wayside. I will say we do see creative solutions with different schools. So for example, I was chatting with a member of 396K yesterday that has interwoven arts integration in almost everything that they do. And so if you look at they're a District 75 school, if you look at their curriculum maps for each month, not only does it have the Common Core benchmarks or whatever alternate assessment benchmarks they're using, it also has ways to integrate the arts as part of that just from the get-go. And last but not least, I'll also share part of it has to do with goal setting and what ultimately is on a school's report card. That there was a shift within the past, I don't know, it might have been like 10 to 15 years where arts education used to be part of that and is no longer listed. And so without that sense of accountability, oftentimes it's something that then could be pushed off for another day. But we think that that day has come, that students have, and all of us, quite frankly, have experienced a very traumatic experience going through the pandemic. I saw a study just yesterday that said, I think it was something like 1 in 200 students here in New York City have lost a parent or caregiver as a result of the pandemic. And while arts are certainly no substitute for mental health counseling, they are a safe space for students to be able to express themselves and also to help process, like I said earlier, what's happening around them. But you are 100% on the money from noticing that there has been a difference. And we see that too, just in terms of the number of teachers that are even employed across New York State as well.
Yeah, that's very well stated. And I think perhaps a side benefit of tonight's meeting is that we've made a connection between Kimberly, between your organization and CECD2, which might perhaps, be able to take this up as well if their busy agenda permits it. And I was very glad to hear Stuart mention sports as well as arts. One of my sons attended Stuyvesant High School, and I joke that he went for the calculus and stayed for the football. So, sports play a big role in the lives of a lot of our kids as well as arts. And, we really have to, figure out how to keep our eyes on that particular ball. Do any of the other members of the committee have a comment at this point? Okay, so seeing none, once again, I need someone to call the question and move the resolution and someone to second it.
John, would you like me to display the resolution?
Oh, yes, please do. I read it. And you can see the resolution. And once again, we were under a lot of time pressure this week. Reflects what Ms. Olson just spoke about. The only thing I didn't mention was the Summer Rising program, which is very important. And the resolution basically strongly supports the points that Ms. Olson made in her presentation and that her group is making to the city council. And once again, this is something that we also will, if we pass the reso, we'll get to the attention of our council members in the districts, in the CD6 zone. So could I have someone on the committee call the question and someone second it, please?
Yes, John. Second.
Okay, so the question has been called by Phil and seconded by Neil. Alexandra, can you take the vote?
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to call everybody's name and please tell me how you vote on this resolution. Neil Barclay,
In favor?
John Keller,
In favor?
Abigail Cruzmark,
In favor.
Philip Napolitano,
In favor?
Sean Sherman,
In favor?
and Stu Desser.
In favor.
So with that, the resolution passes with 6 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstaining, and 0 non-entitled.
Thank you, Alexandra, and thanks everyone who participated in this discussion. A special thanks to Kim for her presentation, patience, and help, and hopefully we've opened some new doors for you and your organization here this evening. I'm going to take my prerogative as chairman and chair of the committee and put off our discussion of fiscal 2024 budget requests to our next meeting. And I'm going to waive my chair's report, and but we'll ask if there is any old or new business from members of the committee. Seeing none, with thanks to our guests, Ben and Len and Kim and the presidents of the PAs of 255 and 40, as well as many parents and guardians from those schools. I'm declaring this meeting adjourned at 7:39 p.m. Thank you all very much for being here.